Yes, guys, and welcome back to the Cannon Podcast instant reaction to that spellbinding, mind-numbingly awesome win over Shakhtar Donetsk at the Emirates Stadium in the Champions League. Arsenal are back again with a scary, incredible... I can't do this anymore, George. God, that was awful. Reaction. Listen, let's get this over with first. We won. We won the game of football. We wanted to win the game of football. Tick. Let's do that. Now let's talk about it. Oh my goodness me. George, how you feeling?
Oh man, it was it looked like a team that had Anfield next, and it was definitely a team that I just felt it was like a training session almost. They didn't have their hearts into it, really. Frustrating because I felt like we started actually quite well. I think the first 10, 15 minutes really started with intent. And I just think as the game went on, players got comfortable. There was I don't know. There wasn't a lot to say beyond. I would say Thomas Partey played really well again. That's two matches in a row that I thought he did very well. Kai Havertz had a very good game himself broadly. Didn't really get any goals or assists, but in terms of being a reference, he was really secure when we tried to go over the top. So he was linking well and doing some good things. And I thought Calafiori, when he did drop into the pivot, was definitely helping us to progress pretty well. But the rest of the team really struggled. I thought Trossard, beyond the penalty miss, had a difficult game receiving the ball, running back to his own goal. And obviously that gets highlighted, especially after the weekend in terms of that miss and what he does to Saliba. But I just think, broadly speaking, every time he was given the ball to receive to help us coming from up top, the touch was very wayward. So it was a difficult night for him. But beyond that, I'm glad that David Raya had a little bit more of an authoritative performance. I thought that
What a save at the end.
He was incredible, actually. Like, the ball was moving.
I didn't know it was deflected either.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was very good. And no, my only frustration with this is I just felt like we didn't discover something from Jesus and Sterling, which is what I wanted to see. I felt like this team, like, you have a look at it, I need something more offensively, especially given what we've got through these injuries. And regardless of what you're looking at, I don't really index the performance too much, but what I do index are these two players that are clearly having to play well and to impress in order to enter the 11. And I'm just not seeing enough where I'm creating doubt there. And that's the frustration on two players that I feel are such big assets on such big wages. Those are my only people that I would probably critique more of. I mean, Jesus was given the captain's armband, which for me is a signal from Mikel. I'm trying to trust you here. Like, I'm trying to give you responsibility. You need to show me something. And yeah, I really don't think that he succeeded.
Yeah, I think you started off on a good tone because I think it's about, from these evenings, look, no one enjoyed that. I was meant to be at the game. I was meant to miss this instant reaction, and I'm so glad I didn't because I couldn't go in the end. So I'm very glad that didn't happen. Like, it wasn't a fun experience. We won, and we can move past it and whatever and take the 3 points and sort of move on to Anfield and talk about that. Fine. But I think there's value in going, okay, what is to be left at the Emirates this evening, and what is to be taken forward? What is stuff that we can see is part of a bigger picture, is part of a pattern. And I think there was a number of things from that game as kind of talking points that are worth discussing. And I think you're right about Jesus. I think because we were kind of discussing this against Bournemouth, certainly on the instant reaction, and maybe on the main podcast as well. The lack of a reference, like this evening, really revealed to me, was very obvious to me how important Saka and Odegaard are as references. Once we cross the halfway line, where are we going? And we can go left. I'm not saying we can't. Sometimes last season it didn't feel like we could, but how often we go over to that side and how reliable those guys are. And I think this is for me, this was like, if I think about the period where Odegaard was out the team, this was the night where I went, oh my God, we need him back so bad. For me, that this was the evening for Odegaard. So that's certainly that. And I think Jesus is a reference just on this point. I didn't see enough from him, but because sort of in the first half, because George and I did a scouted episode a little while ago about Jesus' decision making, and so much of it is about him now, and he did it a few times. There's a moment where he beat a few players and then tries to take a shot on, and I'm going release, 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 and he doesn't do it. And when that's your reference, when that's your Ødegaard and Saka basically, and I don't mean that in skill, I mean that in reference again. That's my concern. And everything either breaks down or breaks through with Jesus. And most of the time it breaks down. When it breaks through, it works. But you can see a player desperate to make himself known in this team, desperate to regain his status, desperate to get that. I said to my friend, I was watching with my friend, when Jesus' entire career, every action Jesus does can be summed up by this noise. Oh. And his entire career at Arsenal can be summed up by that is Jesus. That is Jesus. I've noticed your super chats. We'll come to them in just a second. But yeah, look, before we move on to sort of other talking points, anything more on Jesus before we move on?
No, not too much. Just because, like, I mean, he definitely covered himself in more glory than Sterling, who I felt came on and could have come off. Like, I don't think I noticed him too much. Jesus, at least we were funneling play through the right hand side, so I think he saw more of the ball. It's just, again, ultimately frustrating in his final decision making. I mean, there were some moments. At least what I liked from the Jesus performance was he put himself about defensively, and there was definitely some willingness to at least have a little bit more impetus in that sense. I felt like at least he's giving us that. And so I think just the frustrating thing for me right now between Trossard, Jesus, and Sterling, those are three players that I think offer some redundancy in terms of what we're going to be asking for them to do. And the three of them right now are not in form in terms of our attacking unit. And that's a problem when you've got Saka out. It's already a problem with Saka out. But when you've got essentially what you would describe as your 12th, 11th, 13th attacking man, or 4th, 5th, and 6th choice attackers all out of form, it can highlight and place a little bit more impetus on your starting players to deliver. And the fact is, we don't have a starter. So I think the frustrating thing is I'm just looking at those collection of three individuals who I need to see step up in some manner, especially in the next couple of weeks. It's not even just for Liverpool. Like, I think fundamentally we need to have at least one of them in form. Yeah. And right now it seems kind of like last year when we went through a period where there was a lot of attackers that weren't in form. Our bench, at least from an attacking sense, is struggling to really impact matches. And that's frustrating. But I think on the flip side, I thought Gabriel Martinelli had a good day today. And it was just beyond the goal as well. Like, I think he felt a little bit more emboldened by the goal as well. Felt like there was a little bit more skip in his steps. So I think from a Gabriel Martinelli standpoint, I think he responded well to the criticism that Mikel had after Bournemouth. So that was nice to see. I think he responded not just out of possession, but even in possession, he looked positive. He looked willing to go forward, and he was playing some balls, especially in the second half, that I felt he was trying to break Kai Havertz through, and he did receive. So he was very positive, and he did very well. And beyond, the goal, there was a brilliant half space cross that he does for Jesus back post, in which Kai could probably do a little bit better to get there. But I thought his crossing in general was a lot more secure in finding it today.
Yeah, I thought Martinelli had a really good game. Was probably one of the bright sparks, along with Partey and a few others. I think for me, like a switch flipped once the goal went in. And you could see it like almost immediately after the goal went in, he was dropping deep and sort of like linking up a little bit. And you're sort of going, okay, here he is. He wants to be the guy today. And if he wants to be the guy when Saka and Ødegaard are out the team, be my guest, because I think he has the quality to do so. Look, you're always on days like this going, there was a couple of moments. I think Declan Rice has a cutback for Havertz, and if that doesn't hit a leg, it probably gets to Havertz when we might be 2-0 up. There was another moment where Havertz nearly gets to it with a header, and it's sort of nicked out from under him. There's another chance of a really close chance. I can't remember, maybe Trossard or something. Obviously, the penalty. So we're having we could be having this conversation on another day, and the result would have affected that, of course. But I was concerned by that second half. For me, I felt it was a lot of individuals all trying to prove a point a little bit. Trossard maybe trying to chase the game after the goal, after the miss, sorry. Sterling trying to prove a point. Jesus up till we went off trying to prove a point. Maybe Declan Rice trying to prove a point a little bit. And I think in the first half, sort of story of two halves for me in the midfield, where in the first half I felt actually, and I wrote on my halftime thoughts on X, the box midfield is our best setup. Absolutely, and I felt it was really working for us. I didn't love who was in it and where they were, but in terms of the stability that it gives us, like I didn't love who was necessarily receiving the ball or whatever, but and Declan Rice being ahead of the ball, etc. But in terms of the stability and the structure it gives us, I love the box midfield. But as the game wore on and that structure kind of fell apart, and it felt like individuals just getting dragged and running or whatever, especially Declan Rice, man, like there's a conversation about him and his usage, and I actually don't blame him. I really don't like the way we're using Rice at the minute. And I know you have to play Rice. You have to do it. And without Erdegaard, I understand why we're not doing that. And I understand the role he's playing in the team. But he's ahead of play. He's not able to affect the game. All the stuff he's doing is off the ball. He's counter pressing fine. He's carrying fine. He's dealing with certain things, second ball situations well. There's no problem there. But for Declan Rice, he must be sat there in his head going, I have so much more on the ball for you, Mikel. And it must be so frustrating for him.
Yeah, I feel like there's maybe some logic to say that when you expect to dominate possession in teams like this, that you could probably get away with his usage like that. But I just feel that fundamentally you don't get the most out of Declan Rice by having him play ahead of the ball. Just factually speaking,
Yeah.
as a player, he is somebody that functions best when the game's in front of him. But the problem is I do think that Thomas Partey's come into some brilliant form. And I think that as far as at least what Mikel's thinking is I don't think Marino is quite up to speed in terms of the pressing triggers out of possession, especially as the eight. And he prefers that because we're looking at structure first here. And I think, but it kind of goes back into this theory where how you need to strike a balance between behind the ball players and ahead of the ball players. And currently, I don't think that we're striking that balance, not
No.
just at Bournemouth, not just here, but I just think broadly speaking, we're leaning too much into this. And it's partly because our on the ball superstars are missing. And we're looking for an identity in the final third that fundamentally has no identity. And so I think what's happening is instead of adding another unknown piece, Mikel is saying, I'm going to conserve the part of our game model that I can predict. I don't know if I agree. I'm just trying to get in his head as to why I'm still
Mm.
seeing this. But I mean, I still maintain I don't know why Ethan wasn't even given minutes today. Um, it's another game that lacked a connector. And as far as giving minutes to players that I feel like we need to rediscover, I could understand potentially trying to give minutes to a Jesus, to a Sterling, to some players that we need to rediscover some attacking impetus. But I felt like Trossard had a really difficult match, and I felt like that was a perfect player that could have operated in this box midfield and interacted with Havertz
Yeah.
quite well, and given a player who clearly is not playing to form a break, or at least I don't know what you want to call it, but a valid substitute for not playing well.
Mm.
And I don't see what Trossard gave us in that match that Ethan couldn't have given us.
I I made a new video for TDK today, which is getting edited overnight, and obviously I had to do it before the game, and a lot of it is about giving Ethan a chance. And obviously, when you're writing it, you go like,
Yeah.
obviously, games can switch narratives a little bit, so you're going like, whatever. I feel so vindicated right now because it's basically the whole video. It's like the only thing I maybe disagree with you on is that the game needed a connector. I agree in the second half. I actually thought in the first half we were breaking through them pretty simply. It was once we got to the final third that was the concern. But the second half, I was like, what game state, situation,
But you know what it is?
location, like what more does Mikel need? Like what other things does he need to hit for an Ethan cameo? Like
Do you know
I
what it
don't know.
is though? Like, and I hate to throw a phrase that I've continuously battered over the summer, but it's our transitional inevitability. It just fundamentally isn't there. And I have a look at somebody like Ethan in terms of what he offers, and consistently, there's a lot of benefits that he can offer us deeper. But really, what I love about Ethan is the tempo, the pace, and the care of pass. What we've said really convolutedly is technical empathy, but just saying, listen, I care how you're going to
Good.
receive the ball. I care how this team is going to proceed with their next action. There's far too many players right now, again, because I feel that there's a lack of final third identity that are
Mm.
playing towards themselves. But we need players that are looking to interact. And Havertz, by the way, is one of those who is looking to do that and is looking to connect, and it's successful. Like, I think, I don't know, I don't know about the stats, but I think Forder was saying in another group chat that, Kai Havertz had made something like 4 big chances or clear chances in this match, the most that he's done. And it looked like that way. He looked very facilitative, offered a reference, and he's one of those players that was looking to connect. But then I'll ask you, and I'll turn it to you really quickly. In that front three, if we've got one quote unquote connector in Kai Havertz, between Jesus, between Trossard, and between Martinelli, how many more connectors and on the ball references do we have? And even Kai Havertz, while he was doing it and being facilitative, I wouldn't describe him as a significant on the ball presence. I mean, Trossard is supposed to be that. He wasn't offering it. I think that front four is very low touch in terms of a collection. I don't think that it offers enough balance in terms of having somebody that wants to put their foot on the ball. And that, for me, leads to indecision in the final third, especially if you're going to play at least 3 players whose main strength is runs off the ball, whether it's Jesus at right wing, whether it's Sterling, even Kai Havertz. His best qualities are running off the ball. He can facilitate, but his best qualities are running off and attacking the box. Martinelli, his best usage is running off the ball to arrive in situations. I'm looking towards some balance, and I mean, the one benefit is we didn't have a man sent off, so yay.
We were playing with 10 for a second. There was a moment where Calafiori went off. Thank you, Afaf, for your super chat. Really appreciate it. Really annoyed Havertz wasn't allowed to take the pen. Yeah, it's babe. Yeah, it's a shame. I don't know. The thing is, when you go down the middle, you take the risk. If it looks, like I don't actually, like, I was watching my friend who's like, bad pen. I was like, it wasn't a bad pen. He just put it down the middle and it didn't pay off. I'm not going to read too much into it. I'm more looking at Trossard's performance over the course of the evening. Maybe Havertz should have taken the penalty just because he's our number 9, but also, they have a system in place. And most of the time our penalties go in, so I'm not too worried about that personally. Mafio says Trossard is greedy. We should have had Havertz 8 in 8. Would that have been 8 in 8? Because
I think so. I think he was on record territory. I mean, he's got 7, right? So I think today was the match that he could have done it.
But I thought, didn't we have another home game where he didn't score? Oh no, yeah, he's right. Yeah, Havertz scored in the last home game against Southampton, and yeah, it just shows you, like, I think fans really care about those records. Like players often are like, they're told of it. Do you ever see it in interviews where they're like, "Oh, did you know this?" And they're like, "Oh, right." It's just like, or they're like, "Yeah." It's like, what am I gonna do? Put it on my wall? Like, they're not interested. Dial Square, thank you so much for super chat. Trossard can't start versus Poole. His attitude stinks. I don't know if I feel about his attitude. I think in terms of starting against Liverpool, if we need someone, I think it depends how you're using Trossard. He didn't have his best night this evening. I'm not as harsh on him. I didn't think he was that bad, to be honest. I think the structure around him was kind of more the issue for me, which he's part of, but he's not solely responsible for that. I don't know. I'm not like all in on the Trossard had a horrible evening. I thought he was fine to poor.
I think this role is how you're going to ask to use him. I thought he was poor. He just wasn't efficient. It wasn't a very Trossard game. I think he struggled in the last couple of games about being efficient with his touches. And again, you can't say that about Havertz generally as a player. Like, it is something that he's been very efficient with. But there's something to look into, I think, in terms of his ability to receive under contact out wide. Today, his touch was pretty poor. It was quite trampoline-y, to be honest. I found, at least. And there were some decisions about his back passes. Something's not right there. Like, I'd love to have somebody that can look into stats in terms of passes coming from ahead of the ball and then into midfield. What is his completion rate? Right now, it looks really poor, and it looks like he's pressuring the team in moments like this. But again, I think what he does out of possession in terms of that is very good. It's just, I don't know, especially against Liverpool, if we can afford to be inefficient during transition. Like, I look at that match and I think this team needs to be efficient in terms of what it's able to do, whether or not Saka's here or not. I think that game, it's very important that Arsenal transition well. And that's something that we've struggled with for 18 months or 2 years.
Yeah, and the Havertz Trossard thing has worked. There was a couple of moments this evening where Trossard is kind of in the box and he receives it and he's got space to turn and he doesn't. And I think the sort of the point you're referencing earlier about the balance of sort of facilitators versus connectors versus finishers. There's something not quite right about it. Yeah, it's one to watch. Matthew Brynjolfsson, why won't he play Nathan? I'm presuming Nathan Butler Oyedeji.
I thought he meant Ethan.
This is my job. Oyedeji.
I'm not attempting it. I'm
Okay,
not
yeah,
attempting
but,
it.
yeah. If I can't do it,
The tinfoil hat is not attempting pronunciations.
um, who I'm presuming he means maybe he means Ethan. We've discussed
I think
Ethan,
I
but
think he means Ethan.
why wouldn't he play Nathan Butler Oyedeji? George, eh? Eh?
Yeah, no. I think I don't. Although Nathan's actually been very good for the under-23s or U21s
Matthew, let
rather.
us know. George is too polite to say to you what you on about because he's Canadian. So let us know what you mean. Speaking of Nathan Piper. Game screams shooting practice. Please, when you can, dig up stats on low shots towards the center. Long-term issue prior to Erdegaard injury. Nathan, have you seen some stats that we could have a look at? Because that sounds like you've got some numbers. Stats on low shots towards the center.
Yeah, I'd have to know like from what position that you're talking about. I mean, the only thing that I can tell is that I don't know if I was having a discussion with you, but one of the things that I look at Ethan and what really frustrates me is his level of ball striking, and I think it's a problem. Like he actually is one of the better ball strikers in the squad. Like in addition to being a facilitator, a big reason I want Ethan to have a little bit more minutes is that I think he's brave in terms of his shots, and I think that he's actually got some quite good finishing outside the box. And that's something that we lack in the squad, generally speaking. So I think having a willing shooter and a shooter that I trust in situations and finishing,
Yeah.
Ethan's actually one of the few that I do, generally speaking, which is
Yeah.
why I really want him.
And it's all about balance. Like young players not only give you their qualities, they also give you a bit of impetus, which means other players can sit back into a facilitative role which suits them more, which means they can, he can be the buzzy one while someone else can be the stable one, which is important. You need both. You can't, it's order and chaos. You can't have, you can't have both at the same time. Prathu Kleptomaniac Sir S. Kaushik.
Really testing you.
It rolls off the tongue, I'll tell you. Thank you so much for your super chat, mate. Looked like Saturday game took too much from the players and recovery was slow. I felt like the players were panicked. Georgie should start for stability. Maybe we'll come on to our Liverpool lineups in just a second because I don't think we're doing a podcast before then. Oh no, we are. We're meant to be doing a rewatch. Oh, we're meant to be doing a rewatch.
We should
George,
do a poll.
we can't rewatch that game. No, come on, man, please.
So you want Bournemouth?
Please, no. Maybe we should look at both games and like sort of discuss both. That could be interesting.
Yeah.
Sort of what we learned from those two games. We'll discuss after. Yeah, we can maybe talk about our Liverpool lineups in just a second. The only player I would say recovery-wise that I was looking at was Ben White. After
He
his
does
first,
not look fit. I've said
he
it
doesn't
since
look fit.
Bournemouth. Does not look fit at all.
And also Marino as well. Because there was a point in the second half. I think that's more about him getting up to speed. But there was a couple of clips. There was a couple of moments of Marino like close up, and he's like, while Havertz looks absolutely fine. He's played the whole game. So yeah, I don't know. I think those are the only two players. But yeah, I think Ben also. I mean, before the weekend where he played 90 minutes, he hadn't played 90 minutes since when? A month, maybe more. So it's been a long time. Any individuals we want to come to before we come to as many comments as we can before we finish?
No, I think just broadly to round out again, like I want to maintain. I think Partey had an excellent game. I think he's coming into quite good form, and I think him slotting into right back is something that I have no problem with him doing. I think that he's been very good out of possession as well. Like his tackling technique seems to have really tightened up, and his decision making looks to be really top. So I think he had a very good game. I was happy with Kai Havertz's performance, as well as Calafiori, who I felt like did very well in the pivot. There was some really nice moments in which he's able to receive and provide a really brilliant overlap. I mean, I felt like not just in terms of what he offered for Martinelli on the goal, but even afterwards, he was robbed of an assist with Jesus, who's through on goal. I mean, he finds himself in the box there, offering a really brilliant layoff. So he did really well, and I thought Martinelli did well. But I
Yep.
struggle beyond those four, that quartet, to really say you had a great game. I mean, Raya had great moments, you could say, in terms of the save,
I-
which was really good. But
I'd put Calafiori in that category. I would. I thought
that's what I
Calafiori.
mean. Partey, Havertz,
Oh, sorry, you
Calafiori,
did
and
have Calafiori.
Martinelli.
Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think specifically Calafiori, I think was really, really good before. I think in terms of stopping attacks down our left, their right, in terms of where he was going, he just stands where he wants, mate. He literally stands where he wants. He's like we're attacking down the right, and he's like threatening the back line in the right eight position. It's crazy.
Yeah.
He looked really good. So hopefully he's all right for the weekend. Let's take the last sort of 5 minutes or so of this instant reaction to come to as many comments as we possibly can. Why don't we pick one each, George?
Sure.
Feeling democratic today, and you can start.
How about from Vincent Savolsky? Why do we press in their half and then stop in our half until they got to our box in terms of the press?
Why do we press in their half and then stop in our half until they got to our box?
I felt like I think what you're talking about, like the decision maybe to go man to man, at least in the first, I'd say 15 minutes, we were quite aggressive in our press, but we did seem to drop a little bit, especially in the second half, at least into our block, and we weren't as aggressive out of possession. Look, uh, I struggle to give you a tactical reason for it. I think ultimately the boys want to press. Mikel wants to
What?
press. Um, sorry.
I said, what? You're right.
Yeah. I think they want to press. I really am struggling because I think maybe something has happened fitness wise, just generally in the squad. When you start to talk about the injuries, talk about the amount of times that we have gone to 10 men, and you look at like the focus of what the squad has been able to do. When you combine all those factors, do we have a team that's really able to sit there and press for 75 minutes right now? I don't think so. And I think that the team is picking their moments to turn it on. And I mean, you've got a very difficult run of fixtures coming up between not just Liverpool. I mean, you've got the Chelsea, the Newcastle, the Inter Milan run up coming. So you're going to have to choose your moments. I actually will predict, I think that you're going to see this team press in spurts until that kind of November international break, until we've got a lot more players back and we seem to have more players fit. I mean, we don't really have a fit right back. You've got Marino, who's half fit. You've got, Saka's out, Odegaard's out. There's a lot of issues in the team, and Tomiyasu's out. So there's a lot of players playing. And I mean, Martinelli also just came back technically from I mean, he's also somebody that we've had to nurse since Bournemouth. So I think the squad in general is not very fit. And so we're looking at pressing in moments, generally speaking.
Yep. We'll come to this from Ian Roy, who says, question, thoughts on Arteta not using the squad to the fullest? In my opinion, that's the big reason for some of the injuries. Well, I think if we go through the team, Raya's not been available for a game. Saliba's not going to be available for one game. Ben White's not been available for certain games. I think Gabriel's been available for every game. Timber's not been available. Zinchenko's not been available. Tomiyasu's not been available. Calafiori's not been available. I think Partey's been available, ironically, for the entire season so far.
The only one.
Yeah. Odegaard has not been available at one point. Marino wasn't available. Rice was obviously suspended for a game. Saka's not been available. I think Jesus has been not available. Martinelli's not been available. I think Trossard and Havertz have been fine, and maybe Sterling's been fine, but obviously we need to get him fit. So in terms of in terms of what's that, 11 games, 10 games, 11 games or so far this season, that's nearly the entire squad have been unavailable at some point and for an extended period of time. So I hear this, that I think there are certain questions. We're talking about Ethan Nwaneri, for example, but I will give Arteta his dues and say he's had quite a tricky time with the squad, I think. So, I think let's see that. Prathu says, was it just my broadcast or was the stadium dead? How did the stadium look to you, George?
I actually thought the fans were doing their best to try to get people up for it. I think the players, if anything, looked again like it was a training session. They looked like their mind was on Liverpool and not on the game at hand. They were playing down to their opposition, and I thought the fans that were doing their best to kind of get them up, especially in the second half. And I mean, they weren't responding because the team wasn't responding to it. But I thought the fans did a really good job personally. Like even through my commentary, I felt like there were moments they were trying to get them up. It was just there was very few people that were providing anything exciting. in that match. It was just a very average performance in which we got the job done in a team that's definitely hurting fitness wise, and we're looking to basically get through this period. And I think that a team will always struggle when they're losing two of their most important in possession players, and that's even unfair because out of possession, Martin Odegaard and Bukayo Saka are huge for this Arsenal team. So it's not just in possession like they are two crucial pillars. So I do think that we're going to see a not fluid performance for quite a while until we at least get one on the ball presence back.
Jesus. We haven't done, as we should, George, the usual. Scott Willis, thank you so much for your stats. As always, we had 5 shots on target to their 1, 2.0 per shot XG, 11 open play shots to their 6, 55% possession, 625 passes completed, 64 final third entries to their 41. PPDA was down 11.4, which is up against Bournemouth, and theirs was 21.5, 17 zone 14 touches, and they got 20. Wow.
There's only one stat I care about.
I know. And we're getting there, baby. We're getting there. This is the running XG. If you want to have a look at that in just a second, we won't spend too much time there. Some pretty good placements for shots in terms of in and around the box and quite central as well. I suspect the Martinelli one was this one, so that's probably quite a good result from there. And finally, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, 57.7% field.
I don't know why everyone's so pissed. I mean, we won on field.
Annoyed.
It's
I don't get it. Everyone's like, oh, we lack an on-ball reference. We've looked stodgy. Oh, why didn't you play Ethan? What more do you want? What more do you want? This is what you pay your hundreds of pounds of whatever it is, your season ticket or your TV license or whatever for. This, the field. God. Let's get to Dubai, George. That's what we need. We need a Dubai trip.
Hey,
and pronto.
We've got to see what's the detour like to Anfield.
I don't know what the price would be. Sort of what it would be, probably Heathrow maybe to Dubai to London, Liverpool. Not London, Liverpool. I'm too tired. Liverpool, wherever it is. Liverpool Airport, whatever. Actually, this is a good point before we finish from Nate Dedge. Said it before. This is what unbiased refs are like. Seeing the standard of refereeing in the Champions League, I will say it's because we don't know them. It's because often we're playing teams that we're battering, and also we're I don't know. I think there's a different quality of football in the Champions League, but they are still better. They are still better.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see. It's absolutely nice to see.
Yeah, I think that I would love to know. There was obviously something that went around that I'm sure you saw in terms of the red cards, comparing Arsenal and top 6 clubs. I would love. There's some things to talk about. I had definitely some time to research some stuff in preparation for context of that across those 5 years, which is actually even more damning, to be honest with you. Because in that time, Arsenal have accumulated the least amount of fouls in those top 6. And actually, Arsenal have also garnered the most double yellows in that period, in addition to the most red cards. And it's actually a statistical fact that that number is an outlier. If you want to talk pure numbers, if you were a statistician, having one data point 54% more than the next closest one is the definition of an outlier. So I would love to have a conversation about why we're seeing that across a 5-year sample.
Maybe we should do that instead of the rewatch. Nate, see if people want it. Nate Dead. I will say, people know that which side of the argument I'm on with this, but there was a standard article that basically tried to debunk it with yellows per foul, and I was like, guys, I'm on your side. This is terrible. Do better. Nate Dedge, we should never know the names of refs. Right, absolutely. But we should know the names of George and I on the Cannon Podcast. Thank you guys so much for being here. Podcasting. It's very good. Thanks for being here. We're here after every Arsenal game for at least half an hour. We'll be back later on in the week. George and Rohan will be on the Cannon Podcast Live because I can't be there. We'll be back for the instant reaction on Sunday against Liverpool. Jesus. Yeah, that game is concerning. But we'll finish there. It's not here yet. Let's stay present. Let's be in Tuesday evening for now. and then panic later.
No, but
Thanks,
like
George.
seriously, I feel like no, just to end because I feel like it's a very low beat podcast, and I understand that given the performance. But at some level, mate, like we're facing Liverpool, and I don't agree that your performances in the moment dictate what you're going to do against a big team like that. I think that this team always steps up to the opposition in that way. We've always consistently shown great output against the top six sides, and I think that when you have a look at this team, they will be up for it. And I don't really worry about the squad showing kind of effort in those matches. I think the biggest thing that we saw today was a team that was lazy in their intentions, and I don't think that we're going to see that against the Liverpool side. So I'm excited for it, and I just hope everybody else is, because I think this idea that we can't go there and do something, not go there, but host them and not do well is something that I just don't agree with.
I don't think you've ever been nervous for a game. I don't think I've ever heard you say I'm nervous for a game. I'm terrified. I'm terrified,
No,
guys.
no, I'm not nervous. I'm excited.
There you go. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you being here. Thank you, George.
Thank you, good sir.
Thanks for watching, and thanks for keeping an Arsenal.